sight, hearing, taste, touch, smell. Well, as you know, those are the five primary senses with which the Creator has endowed us. But now, which one of these five is perhaps the closest related to our being able to gain the prize of everlasting life? Well, is it not hearing? It's interesting, throughout history, the churches of Babylon the Great have put the main emphasis not on hearing, but on seeing, or perhaps touching, seeing an image of their God, maybe touching or kissing that image. But Jehovah has always put the emphasis on hearing. Hear, O Israel, give ear and listen. With commanding calls such as this, the Israelites were summoned together to hear Jehovah's words read and explained. Well, similarly, today, we have many opportunities to hear Jehovah's words read and explained. But now here's a question. Is it sufficient that we just hear the sounds of Jehovah's words? Well, you know that's not sufficient. Here's an experience that illustrates this. Many years ago, I was working in service with a brother. It was his turn to talk. He was very nervous. The lady came to the door. He said, "How are you?" She said, "Not very good." He said, "That's good." And he proceeded with his presentation. Well, he heard sounds coming out of her mouth, but he didn't hear so as to perceive what was said. Well, obviously, Jehovah expects us to do a whole lot better than that when it comes to hearing his words. In Matthew 13:16, today's scripture text, Jesus commended his disciples by saying, "Happy are your ears because they hear." Now, he wasn't commending them for just hearing sounds coming out of his mouth, but he was commending them because they heard with understanding. They grasped the meaning, and then they were in position to make application of what they had heard. Well, do we want Jehovah and Jesus to pronounce our ears happy? Do we want figuratively happy ears? We do, don't we? Well, then we must listen like those disciples in a way we grasp the meaning and are in position to make application. Open up to Mark chapter 4, please. And here's an interesting scripture in this vein. Notice the words of Jesus. Mark chapter 4, beginning in verse 23, he said, "Whoever has ears to listen, let him listen." He further said to them, "Pay attention to what you are hearing." Now notice this, with a measure that you are measuring out, you will have it measured out to you. Yes, you will have more added to you. So notice, Jesus was saying that if you measure out little interest and attention, don't expect to gain much. In contrast, if you measure out your full attention and interest to what I'm saying, then I will give you generously, even beyond your expectations. Well, it works the same way today, doesn't it? We actually reap enlightenment in direct proportion to how much interest and attention we measure out. Go to Hebrews chapter 2. Here's another scripture. Very familiar scripture in this regard. Hebrews chapter 2. And notice, we're not to just pay casual attention or even usual attention. But notice how it's worded. Hebrews 2, verse 1, "That is why it is necessary for us to pay more than the usual attention to the things we have heard, so that we never drift away." So it's absolutely required, if we're not going to drift away from Jehovah or the truth, we've got to pay more than the usual attention. Now let's illustrate this point. I'd like you to imagine that you're trapped in a building that is engulfed in fire. A fireman makes his way to you, and he says, "I only have time to tell you this once. I've got to go help other people. But there's only one way to escape. You've got to go down the stairs very quickly. When you get to the bottom, drop down on your stomach and begin crawling. You have to stay within 3 feet of the floor, because above that there are poisonous gases. Crawl, though, to the right, and you will see a small hallway, or narrow hallway. Crawl through that hallway. When you get to the end, You'll be in the lobby, stand up, turn left, run out the exit doors. Now, while those instructions were being given, would you allow your mind to wander? Would you be thinking, I wonder what I'll have for supper tonight? I wonder what I'll be on TV? No, your attention would be riveted because one missed detail could cost you your life. And even after the fireman left, you probably would still hear ringing in your ears his words as you reviewed them in your mind. Say, down the stairs, crawl through the hallway, go out the left of the lobby through the exit doors. You'd be reviewing that information with the idea you were truly going to make application. Well, that's how we want to listen. And if you think about it, we're in a similar situation, aren't we? Satan's world is on fire around us, and very soon it's going to totally burn up. But Jehovah is giving us escape instructions. In fact, in 2 Peter 3:12 about this system, it says that it's going to be destroyed in flames and the elements will melt in the intense heat. But we want to survive. We don't even slightly want to be like the idols mentioned in Psalm 115, verse 6, who have ears, but they don't hear. Or like the cobra mentioned in Psalm 58:4, that stops up its ears and refuses to hear the voice of the charmer. Or like the disobedient Israelites described in Isaiah 6:10 as having unresponsive ears. Or those disobedient Israelites are described in Jeremiah 6:10 in the literal Hebrew as having uncircumcised ears. We don't even want to be like the Hebrew Christians who are described in Hebrews chapter 5, verse 11 as being dull in their hearing. We want to do our very best to uncover our ear. Now, that's an interesting expression in the literal Hebrew in Job 36, verse 10. And apparently it comes from the fact that the Orientals wore a headdress. But to hear more clearly, they would partially remove that headdress and uncover the ear. Well, we want to do that ourselves. We want to incline our ear. Psalm 78, verse 1. Awaken our ear, open our ear, give ear, as different verses in Isaiah say. And all of that is pay attention with a view of making application of what we have heard. Now, if we do this, use our sense of hearing wisely, as we've discussed, then we'll be in position to survive the cataclysmic end of this system of things. As recorded at 2 Kings 21, verse 12, Jehovah said, "Here I am bringing such a disaster on Jerusalem and Judah that it will make both ears of anyone who hears about it tingle." Well, it's true. During the Great Tribulation, people of this world, when they hear about the calamitous events of the Great Tribulation, undoubtedly both of their ears, figuratively for sure, but perhaps even literally, will tingle. But the ears of Jehovah's people will continue inclined toward Jehovah's directions that will come at that time, such as found at Isaiah 26, verse 20, where Jehovah will say, "Go, my people, enter your inner rooms and shut your doors behind you. Hide yourself for a brief moment until the wrath has passed by." And as Jesus declared the ears of his disciples happy, Jehovah and Jesus will be able to declare the ears of the surviving great crowd happy. They will say to them, "Happy are your ears because they hear."